Hello, my name is Don Want, and this is the first podcast of environmental health effects and critical thinking. Up to date, I have produced scientific articles on Substack, and now with the digital ID coming in, I'm looking at alternates to that, as well as this option of putting a podcast together. So there is now an option to read my articles or listen and watch this podcast. Later on, there will be interviews coming on this podcast to attention the critical thinking aspect of this title of this podcast. Critical thinking is quite absent from today's society as I see it, and it should be interesting what's coming up in the future. Today, there's going to be two topics covered, a main topic and a subtopic. The main topic is to do with iron levels in the body, which affects fatigue, feelings, and a whole host of other aspects. The medical system seems to be in a paradigm of diagnosing or overdiagnosing anemia in many people, and that may not be the case. The subtopic today is an example of how science can be distorted, and this one is a doozy with regard to being put together by a government department and published on a well-known medical journal, and it has to do with miscarriages after COVID vaccination. So let's get started on the main topic. Are you tired all the time? The mineral connection that should be checked. How iron overload and copper deficiency could be behind your fatigue, brain fog, and chronic health issues. This article is inspired by Morley Robbins, who I have listened to being interviewed several times. His highlighting of a problematic paradigm within our conventional medical system struck me as something that needs to be more widely known. The effect is environmental, as it is the environment we now live in, characterised by reduced nutrients and contaminants in our food, that creates the root cause. The following comments should not be taken as medical advice. There can be other causes of the symptoms mentioned, but if you relate to this with your health condition, you should discuss it with your health advisor before taking any action. Do you wake up feeling tired even after a full night's sleep? Is your doctor telling you that you're anemic and need more iron, but the supplements don't seem to make a difference? Do you struggle with brain fog, joint pain, or just feeling like you're running on empty? You're not alone. Millions of people are told they have an iron deficiency anemia and are prescribed iron supplements or encouraged to eat iron-fortified cereals and bread. But here's the surprising truth. For many people, the real problem isn't too little iron, it's too much. The missing piece of the puzzle is a mineral most Australians have never heard about: copper. Morley Robbins, a healthcare researcher with over 16 years of experience studying how minerals function in the body, has discovered something remarkable. His research indicates that the common understanding of iron and anemia is incorrect. The fatigue, health issues, and lack of energy aren't necessarily signs that you need more iron. Instead, they signal that your body struggles to properly utilise the iron it already has. And this problem begins with copper. So the real reason you have no energy. Think of your body as a car. To operate effectively, it needs fuel, that's food, oxygen, and spark plugs, that's the minerals. Your cells contain tiny energy factories called mitochondria that generate the energy that you need to think, move, and live. These mitochondria are crucial. They produce ATP, which is essentially your body's battery power. Few people realise that copper is vital for these energy producers to function. Without sufficient copper, your mitochondria can't turn oxygen into usable energy. It's like a car with a weak spark plug. The engine splutters and struggles regardless of how much fuel you put in. This is why people with low copper often feel exhausted all the time. Their bodies have plenty of oxygen and nutrients, but without copper, they can't convert these nutrients into usable energy. No amount of coffee, vitamins, or rest will fix the problem because the root cause, copper deficiency, hasn't been addressed. So why iron won't work without copper? Here's where things get interesting. Iron and copper work together like dance partners. You need both for the dance to succeed. There's a protein in your blood called ceruloplasmin. Don't worry about pronouncing it, just think of it as the copper delivery truck. This protein carries copper throughout your body, but it also has another important role, helping your body use iron properly. When you don't have enough copper, your ceruloplasmin levels decrease. This causes iron to become trapped in your tissues. It can't move properly through your bloodstream, can't enter your red blood cells where it's needed, and can't be recycled when old red blood cells break down. This creates a confusing situation. Your blood test shows low iron, so your doctor says you're anemic and need more iron. But the real problem is that you don't have enough copper to transport the iron you already have. It's like having a water warehouse full of supplies but no trucks to deliver them. Adding more supplies to the warehouse doesn't solve the problem. You need trucks. Research on animals with copper deficiency demonstrated this very point. When scientists removed copper from the diets of pigs, their blood iron levels plummeted, even though they had normal amounts of iron stored in their bodies. The iron was present, it just couldn't catch or reach where it needed to go. The hidden danger, that is too much iron. From the above explanation, most people in developed countries don't have too little iron, they have too much. Since the 1940s, governments have mandated that companies add iron to flour, bread, cereals and other grain products. The idea seemed sensible if people are anemic to give them more iron. But there's a problem. Your body has no natural way to get rid of excess iron. Evolution designed us to hold on to our iron tightly because it was rare in the past. So when you eat fortified bread, cereal, pasta and other grain products every day for years, that iron accumulates in your tissues. Think of it like a bathtub with the plug in. Each day more water fills it up, but nothing drains out. Eventually the tub overflows. That's what's happening in your body with iron. Excess iron causes serious issues. It triggers what scientists call oxidative stress, basically rusting inside your body. This rusting harms your mitochondria, the energy producers, your brain cells, your heart, your liver, and other organs. It's been linked to heart disease and high blood pressure, diabetes, Alzheimer's disease and Parkinson's disease, liver disease, joint pain and arthritis, chronic fatigue and low energy. The irony, and that's a pun, is painful. The iron supplements and fortified foods meant to help you might actually be making you sicker. Let's talk about why stress makes everything worse. Another part of the puzzle when you're under stress, be it emotional stress, long-term illness or inflammation, your body purposefully pulls iron out of your bloodstream and stores it in your tissues. This is actually a defense mechanism. Your immune system does this to keep iron away from bacteria and viruses, which need iron to multiply. This is controlled by a hormone called hepcidin. When you're stressed or sick, hepcidin levels increase and iron is stored away. So your blood test shows low iron, but your body actually has plenty. It's just being stored in the tissues where the test can't measure. This is why taking iron supplements when you're stressed or dealing with chronic health issues often doesn't work. You're not actually iron deficient. Your body is deliberately hiding the iron you have. What you need is to address the stress and support your copper levels so your body can properly manage its iron again. Let's talk about where did all the copper go? If copper is so important, why are there so many people deficient? The answer lies in what has happened to our food supply and environment over the past few decades. The glyphosate problem. The main culprit is a chemical called glyphosate, better known by its brand name Roundup. This is the most widely used weed killer in the world, sprayed on most crops in developed countries. Glyphosate attaches to minerals in the soil and prevents plants from absorbing them. Research by Dr. Don Huber at Purdue University shows that glyphosate removes copper from soil 1 billion times faster than it removes calcium and magnesium, and 1,000 times faster than it removes iron. This indicates that even organic vegetables grown in contaminated soil might have very little copper. How widespread is the glyphosate? A 2022 study in France, a country that has tried to restrict glyphosate use, found that 99% of French citizens had glyphosate in their urine. It's in the air, it's in the rain, in the water supply. There's virtually no escaping it. Other copper thieves. Glyphosate isn't the only issue. High fructose corn syrup present in fizzy drinks, processed foods and sweetened products is turned into sorbitol in your body. Sorbitol binds to copper, reducing about 98% of nearby copper's availability for your body to use. Many medications also disrupt copper levels, especially drugs that contain fluoride. The combination of poor diet, chemical exposure and medications has created a perfect storm of copper deficiency in modern populations. So what can you do about it? The good news is that addressing this imbalance is relatively straightforward. Here's what helps. Eat copper-rich foods. The best sources of bioavailable copper are beef liver, the single best source, 1 serving contains your daily requirement, oysters and other shellfish, organ meats, mushrooms, especially chickpea, seeds, especially sesame and sunflower seeds, and dark leafy greens. It's important to note that you need to ensure beef liver comes from grass-fed, grass-finished cattle. Cattle finished on grain, which is common, lose most of their copper content. The distinction is significant. Because modern food is so depleted, many people need copper supplements. The best form of copper is bisglycinate, which absorbs well. Most should start with 2 milligrams daily with food and can slowly increase to 4 to 6 milligrams depending on how they feel. The safe upper limit is generally seen as 10 to 12 milligrams daily. It's important to take copper with the right supporting nutrients, including whole food vitamin A, retinol, B vitamins, and magnesium. Taking copper alone isn't as effective as taking it with these cofactors. What not to take. Just as important as what you take is what to avoid. These synthetic supplements in high doses can interfere with copper metabolism. High-dose zinc supplements, usually over 50 milligrams daily. Zinc competes with copper for absorption. Food sources of zinc like oysters, beef, and pumpkin seeds are perfectly fine and won't cause this problem. High-dose synthetic vitamin D, usually 5,000 plus IU daily without balancing cofactors, can reduce copper bioavailability. Getting vitamin D from sun exposure or cod liver oil with natural vitamin A is beneficial. High-dose ascorbic acid or synthetic vitamin C, usually 1,000 milligrams plus daily, interferes with copper enzymes. Whole food vitamin C from fruits and vegetables or whole food vitamin C supplements do not have this effect. The main point, it's the high doses of isolated synthetic nutrients that cause problems, not the nutrients from whole foods. Your body is capable of handling nutrients when they come in their natural form with all their cofactors intact. The trouble begins when we take large amounts of isolated compounds that disrupt mineral balance. How to know if this applies to you? The typical iron panel that most doctors order doesn't provide the full picture. To truly understand your iron and copper levels, you need more comprehensive panel that includes serum iron, ferritin, iron storage, hemoglobin, serum copper, ceruloplasmin, the copper iron protein, transferrin, saturation. This is sometimes referred to as the full Monty iron panel. If you're a woman still having periods, get tested around day 14 to 15 of your cycle for the most accurate results. Another useful test is hair tissue mineral analysis. This test examines mineral patterns over time and can identify imbalances that blood tests overlook. Many standard doctors aren't familiar with this method, so you might need to look for a practitioner trained in the root cause protocol or functional medicine who understands these ideas. What to expect? When people tackle their copper-iron imbalance, the results can be quite dramatic. Many report significantly more energy, often within the first few weeks, better mental clarity and reduced brain fog, improved sleep quality, less joint pain and inflammation, better mood and emotional resilience, strong connective tissue, fewer injuries, better skin elasticity. There's an interesting case study from Greece explained by Marley Robbins. A man named Constantine Tiz developed a serious blood condition called myelodysplastic syndrome. His doctor tried an unusual approach. Instead of giving him more iron, he removed excess iron through chelation therapy. As iron exited his body, something intriguing happened. His copper and ceruloplasmin levels returned to normal without any copper supplements. He lived for another 10 years after this treatment, suggesting that sometimes the apparent copper deficiency is actually caused by too much iron blocking copper's function. The bigger picture, rethinking health. This isn't just about iron and copper. It's about recognizing that your body is an interconnected system. When one mineral is out of balance, it impacts everything else. When your energy factories can't work because they lack copper, you don't just feel tired, you experience a chain of health issues that seem unrelated but all come from the same root cause. The traditional medical approach tends to treat symptoms separately. If you're fatigued, you'll get a stimulant. If you have joint pain, you'll get given anti-inflammatory. If you suffer from brain fog, it may be depression, so you receive antidepressants. However, none of these treatments address the root cause of why your cells can't produce energy in the first place. As Robbins stresses in his work, there is no disease, only stress-related mineral deficiency and dysregulation. When you restore mineral balance, many symptoms vanish because you have tackled the root cause instead of just covering up the symptoms. This also raises an important question about public health policies. Should we continue to fortify foods with iron when iron overload might be more common than iron deficiency? Should doctors routinely prescribe iron supplements for anemia without first checking copper levels? These are discussions we need to have as a community. Taking charge of your health. The link between copper, iron, and your energy levels has been mostly ignored by modern medicine. You don't need to be a scientist to get to the main idea. Your body requires copper to use iron correctly, and without both in balance, your cells can't produce energy. If you're constantly tired and iron supplements haven't made a difference, or you're facing ongoing health issues with no clear cause, it's worth considering this link. The tests are easy, the treatments are simple, and the potential benefits are huge. You don't need to accept fatigue as normal. You don't have to live with brain fog and low energy. Your body naturally has the ability to heal when provided with the right building blocks. Sometimes these building blocks are simpler than we think, not exotic supplements or complicated protocols, but basic minerals in the correct balance. The journey to improved health could be as straightforward as supporting your body in doing what it already knows: producing energy, managing iron levels, and flourishing. Where to learn more? To learn more about the root cause protocol and find practitioners trained in this approach, visit the rootcauseprotocol.com or rep123.org. Morley Robbins' book, Cure Your Fatigue, offers a comprehensive guide to understanding and applying these principles. And now for the subtopic for today. It's on a study that was published in a well-renowned journal, the New England Journal of Medicine, by a subcommittee of the CDC, which is the United States Centers for Disease Control. It was done in 2021, and it was aimed at checking any increased rates of miscarriage when the COVID-19 vaccine was administered to the pregnant women. So this is the study you see on the screen, and let's have a look at it a little bit more. Its main conclusion was that the miscarriage rate was 12.6%, and that's within the normal range, which is around 10 to 20% perhaps as normal. So it wasn't unusual at 12.6%. However, some scientists, on looking at this study and the data that it used to come up with this figure, calculated that the pregnancy loss was really 82%. So why is that? Why is this discrepancy here? The original calculation was based on 104 pregnancy losses in 827 mothers that were studied. So 104 over 827 is 12.6% loss rate. However, in the fine print, 700 of the 827 women were vaccinated in the third trimester, that is, after 20 weeks past the miscarriage risk period. So it was highly unlikely they had a miscarriage anyway. So why this matters is miscarriages, as I just said, only occur before 20 weeks. So it skews the data to look safer than it was. When you calculate or recalculate this 104 pregnancy losses over 127 early pregnancies, that comes to quite a different figure, the 82%. So what happened next was that the CDC authors issued a correction, and the journal, New England Journal of Medicine, quietly erased the faulty denominator from the original publication. And yet they kept safe conclusions. No major warning issued to pregnant women by the CDC. The follow-up study problems. The researchers tried to fix issues but created new problems for themselves. They claimed no biological reason to expect harm, which was false because immune activation can harm fetuses, that is, from the vaccination. It included women vaccinated 30 days before pregnancy. So that's mixed different exposure windows. And then it excluded losses in weeks 1 to 5, when 90% of miscarriages happen. So there were built-in biases, and they made the vaccine look safer than it was. In the big picture for this study and its follow-up, the data appears to be manipulated to show favourable results. The errors were quietly corrected without major announcements, and pregnant women were denied truly informed consent. The key takeaways from this is the original study claimed 12.6% loss rate or miscarriage. The corrected calculation from this data that they used actually shows 82% loss rate. The follow-up studies had built-in biases, and true pregnancy outcomes remained unknown at that time. All this was kept under wraps, protecting pharmaceutical interests instead of mothers and babies. Well, that concludes our first podcast. You've seen how a medical paradigm is present, which needs investigation in your case perhaps, and also how government authorities, in this case the US CDC, has gaslit the public, and of course those studies are worldwide and affected Australia as well. Anyhow, I hope you enjoyed the first podcast, and please give me any feedback, and I'll see you next podcast. Bye. The information in this podcast is provided for informational purposes only. It is not intended to diagnose, treat, cure, or prevent any disease. Information on this podcast must be discussed with your healthcare provider. Don Want disclaims any responsibility for any adverse effect from the use of the podcast information. Guest opinions are their own, and the podcast does not endorse or accept responsibility for the statements made by guests.